Welcome to Movie Postmortem, where we dissect films of all kinds, whether they're good, bad, or those guilty pleasures we just can't quit. I'm Reggie Hill, and I'm joined by my nephew Isaiah Brown. Together, we're here to examine what worked, what didn't, and why we keep coming back for more. So grab your popcorn because no movie is safe from the scalpel on Movie Postmortem. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. On today's episode, we will be talking about Twilight Eclipse, our third episode on the Twilight franchise, and it's really nice. This is one of our most commented on series. A lot
Yeah,
of people that I know really love, unironically, Twilight.
yeah. For all you sadists that are waiting for us to get to the next episode, here we are.
People call me, people have written me things about what we got wrong in our discussion, what we don't understand about the story based on our discussion. And I always joke, oh yeah, just treat it like a call-in show and call in and give us your feedback. If you want to send us a video or an audio clip for me to either somehow work into an episode or post on social media, feel free to do it. I
Yeah,
actually welcome the discussion.
please, by all means, tell us why you think we're wrong on Twilight, and we'll tell you that you're wrong.
Always open to debate on movie postmortem. So I will start with the log line of the film. As a string of mysterious killings grip Seattle, Bella, whose high school graduation is fast approaching, is forced to choose between her love for vampire Edward and her friendship with werewolf Jacob.
And that's pretty much the plot of this movie. Just us, honestly, just saying that sounds more entertaining than what we got in the movie.
Yes, I was surprised how little actually transpires in the course of this film.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
I had to look up the events of the last movie, New Moon. It had been a while since we reviewed that, and I wasn't familiar enough with the plot to go forward watching this. And I must admit, the reason I decided for us to continue the Twilight franchise is
Because they're
because
free
it's
again.
free on Netflix again.
Yeah, I've told him multiple times that I would not pay for these movies, and the only reason I even have them, and the reason why we got started with this idea, is because I found them on eBay for like for $5 in total.
That seems like about what they're worth.
Yeah, $5 for in total. Like every movie was $1.
Since this was the very first episode of our podcast, Twilight, I feel it is a special place in our hearts and in the podcast history. So I was happy to
Yeah,
continue watching it for free.
yeah.
But
Despite how dog water these movies are, these movies have a special place in my heart. Because again, this was our first episode. This is what kicked us off. I stupidly tried to kick off us doing these movies back to back to back when we first started, and didn't realize how much of a bad idea that would be.
yeah, that's quite interesting. A lot of people really love Twilight. Some of the most avid readers I know who read things that I would consider a lot better than Twilight, this is a guilty pleasure franchise for them.
Well, I was gonna say if they love it ironically, then that's okay. But if you love this movie unironically, then I don't think I want to talk to you.
It's still our most listened to episode. Again, it's the one that people comment on the most. So I was eager to see where the story goes from where we left off in New Moon. I just did not remember enough about it to just go in
Yeah.
cold. So I had to read the Wikipedia summary.
This is now like my I think maybe like third time watching these movies. Watched them once by myself, twice with friends, second time with friends, and third time in preparation for this. And it's funny. With watching the movie three times, you would expect to remember things, wouldn't you?
Yes,
I barely remembered anything about this movie while I went in.
it's very forgettable. One of the things that I will admit, I had a lot of trouble just paying attention while watching this film. I like to pay attention to the film, take notes for the podcast. I noticed my attention drifting, so I'd have to do a little rewind. Oh, I need to rewind a minute, rewind 10 seconds. What did they say? Is that important? Multiple times through this film.
Yeah,
There's
as we,
very little that happens.
I'm gonna do a quick Miss Cleo here for a moment. I'm already gonna predict that you're gonna say like, oh, this entire movie was the baseball scene, because honestly, that's what it felt like.
No, I actually don't think it was that entertaining. At least baseball with vampires was entertaining. This was not that entertaining. The thing that I had forgotten about, like where the last film, New Moon, kind of left off with the cliffhanger, was that Edward asked Bella to marry him. What happens throughout this entire film is a series of conflict, poorly done, and at the end of Eclipse, Bella agrees to marry Edward. That's all that really happens in the story. There is a very convoluted decision that Bella makes at the beginning of the film that she doesn't want to marry Edward for reasons that were not clear to me. So what you have in this story is essentially kind of New Moon Part 2, where it's just about Bella deciding to agree to the very thing you would believe that she
Yeah,
wants more than
it's weird.
anything.
It's weird because I also was confused on that in the first run through. Because my initial impression was she wasn't gonna say yes until he turns her, but he agreed that he wouldn't turn her until after they got married. So like
But to me, that whole thing was like
that's weird.
that's a moot point. Like they both want the same thing.
Exactly. So it's just like why we said this in the first Twilight movie. All of this is unnecessary. Why don't we just turn her now?
Yeah, so this was a film that had really extended discussions about who Bella really wanted to be with, why she wanted or did not want to marry Edward, but all of it seems pointless because you know, and even as she states multiple
Yeah,
times, what she wants. So even her decision in the beginning to say, like, well, getting married is a little bit too far of a step, I was like, that doesn't even seem believable to her character.
yeah, and it's so weird because like I didn't care enough to watch these movies back when they were more popular than sliced bread. But even back then, I couldn't stop seeing Team Jacob, Team Edward everywhere. And even if you're half asleep while watching these movies, you can't be like, oh yeah, there's a romance triangle going on. It's really not.
Yes, this is not a
She
romance.
says if at most Bella loves Jacob like a friend or brother even.
Yeah, this is not a romance triangle. There are only 2 points on this. This is a romance line. Let's give our kind of overall impression and our overall score. I'll start. I found this film to be unbelievably boring. Not enough actually happens. It seems like kind of extended plot from New Moon. So without even the over the top melodramatic depression stuff, as bad as that was in New Moon, this just seems like filler material that doesn't go anywhere. So because of that, I think it's far worse than New Moon. And so I would give this, I can't remember what I actually gave New Moon. It's not worth
I
going
don't
back to
either,
hear that.
honestly.
I give this 1 out of 5 stars.
Your thumb could slip on the skip button and you would miss nothing. With all that said, I'm gonna give this a 0 out of 5.
I think that's fair. As we both said, this is filler material. The real test, I believe, would be saying or asking this question. If you didn't watch Eclipse and you watched New Moon and you went straight to whatever film is next, would you have missed anything? And I think the answer is no. And so let's talk behind the scenes a little bit before we get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah,
This is the film that made the most of any of the individual films in the franchise.
you have got to be kidding me.
I found that very interesting.
Are
I
you
think it
serious?
was because this is probably coming on the heels of that Team Edward, Team Jacob. Jacob was just introduced in that, second film, majorly. So I think when people went to see this, what they were expecting is like, this is gonna be a big thing. Now we've established both of those characters, and people were expecting so much from this film.
Yeah.
I found that very interesting. I was like, oh, I would have thought this would have been like beneath New Moon, but it's actually the top grossing
Oh,
domestically and foreign box office.
okay. Yeah, I get it. So this movie's the Captain Marvel of the Twilight series.
Yeah, it's like it's the one that caught people's attention. It was when that momentum and that desire for anything related to it was so high. Then I think it kind of they cooled a little bit by the time the
Yeah.
wrap up to the series was announced.
Yeah.
And so, for any new listeners, I'll describe what we do with our breakdown. We talk
Hmm.
about our causes of celebrations, our causes of death, and script stitch ups, which are anything we would suggest that the writer could have done to make the product better. I will be very honest. I don't have any causes of celebration for this film.
Yeah. Well, I was getting ready to give a quick disclaimer. For those of you that were there for our first episode of a movie postmortem, back when it was called Aliens to Zombies, you noticed we changed our formula. So if you only watch that episode, you're gonna have to get used to this now. This is what
Yes,
we're
that
doing
is
for
very
on.
true. I actually talked to somebody who had only listened to our first episode and then listened to one of our recent ones, and she was like, "Wow, the format is great." I'm like, "Yeah, we changed that after one episode."
Yeah, after it was just a 30 minutes of us just talking, and we changed it. So yeah, I only have like maybe like one or two, three causes of celebration, and those are because I found it funny, and they weren't supposed to.
Okay, so I'll let you kick it off with our first cause of celebration.
Yeah, maybe they're not even cause of celebration. Look, you know what? Let's scrap this. This isn't cause of celebration. This is what made Isaiah laugh. How
Yeah,
about that?
the new segment. Go ahead.
Yeah. First off, everything else is so much more interesting than our main trio here, Bella, Jacob, and Edward.
Yes,
I
that's
would have I would have rather those vampires that were causing havoc in Seattle. I would rather watch them than the main trio.
we think very similarly. That's the only thing I would have called a cause of celebration. But I had so many critiques about the film because of that that I didn't want to put it in that group.
Yeah.
This is a
Yeah.
story I feel that has so much potential, so much more interesting world building and lore, but we don't focus on any of that.
Even though this feels sacrilegious to compare these other medias, but this is how I generally feel. But this movie's got like the same sin that like Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, and all the other like Child of Destinies have, to where the world is so much more interesting than the main character, and you would have so much more fun with everyone else but the main character.
100%. I love the lore that they built. I love the biological differences, and they describe the new vampires that are still kind of soaking in their human blood while they're stronger than the older vampires.
Even though that makes no sense, I still
I
like that they tried
liked
to do
it. Yeah,
lore.
I liked the, I love lore. Give me some lore, and I'm always
Yeah,
going to be happy. The film does a really good job of almost creating these very small anthology-like stories where you learn the history of some of these older vampires, older werewolf interactions, where you see things that happened hundreds of years ago. You see the initial turning of several members of the Cullen clan, and all of those stories are so much more interesting
yeah. Then
than
then
anything that
the
happens in this film. Yes, Rosalie's story is tragic and heartbreaking. She still is something that I consider so much of an outlier in these films that I wish they either dealt with her perspective more or completely eradicated it because it's so
yeah,
much more interesting than anything that Bella ever does. She's the only one who keeps telling Bella, no, you don't want to do this. I didn't have a choice. I hate that they made me this. You are flat out wrong
yeah.
for wanting this in your life.
She even says like I picture my what my life could have been all the time. Me with my husband, gray haired and grandchildren, and I was robbed of that choice.
Yes, and even when Bella flat out says, "Well, there's nothing I would ever more want more than Edward," and she just flat out says, "No, you're wrong. You're still wrong." It's
Yes,
such a very strong message that
yeah.
Bella completely ignores, obviously.
Think of it when you're getting a dinner that you don't like. Think of the one good thing that makes it somewhat
That's
bearable.
true. Yeah, that's true. We should take it away. Yeah, I will join you. You've convinced me. Yes, the lore is a cause of celebration for this film.
Yeah. And so now that we're done with the cause of celebration, let's move on to this new segment for only for this movie. Things that Isaiah thought was funny. Here's the first off. Did you notice that after after Jasper revealed that he was turned during the Civil War, he just sometimes had an accent?
Yes, which is one of the things that I found so funny. He sometimes had an accent, he sometimes didn't. And that's one of the things that is very inconsistent in the film. And I think a better storyteller would have incorporated that even from the beginning. If you want the characters to be old, ancient almost, you would imagine that people would talk or act or sound like they did from decades or centuries ago. I know it's a very hard thing to do, and sometimes it doesn't work. I don't think you've ever seen the original Highlander movie.
Oh no.
One of the things that sticks out so much is the accent that the Highlander has, which is supposed to reflect the fact that this guy has lived for hundreds of years in so many different places. He has this kind of weird accent that you can't, he's like, where are you from? You sound like you're from like four different places, but that was a very deliberate choice by the actor to say, like, look, this is going to reflect the fact that this guy wouldn't sound modern English. He would sound like he's lived in Egypt and China and Russia and
Yeah.
India, you
And
know?
like maybe that's too unrealistic thing about it because like if you're alive from the Civil War onwards to this century, maybe after a while you will lose like accent in your original speaking method because languages change over time, and so do the people that speak them. But even still, don't half do it. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I agree. Don't just do it occasionally a one off. Keep it consistent. And immediately before we move off that point, just that aspect of the story showing Jasper's being turned during the Civil War, I was like, oh man, I would love a Civil War era set vampire story. I wish I was watching that. I have seen a story like that slightly. That was the Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Yeah.
Man, we should have reviewed that.
Well, put it
But
on the list.
anyway.
We'll get there. The fact that he's a vampire from the Civil War era, that's a lot of potential right there. Like, did they say what side he was on? I imagine they didn't, but
I don't recall.
yeah. But depending on which side he was on, that could have been an interesting story right there because he was there to see black people be free, and probably depending on what side he was on, he would have some opinions on that.
Yeah.
I would like to see him like I would like to see Jasper like either grow as a person and become more accepting, or still be stuck in those good old days.
Yeah, be stuck in his ways. You know what's worse than the vampire? A
A
racist
racist vampire.
vampire.
Because I refuse to drink his blood. What's wrong with his?
Exactly, yeah. We've already created a better plot and
We've
story.
already created such, that's the side story. Forget about the next movie starring Jake Edwards' point of view. Give me Jasper's.
Yeah.
That's the biggest cause of death for this movie. Jacob's character. They took his character, what they were, and it's like, you know what? He was a little bit too normal. Let's stomp that out. Because the moment they're alone, finally, Bella and Jacob, they're talking, and she admits that she wants Edward to turn her, and he flips out like he just lost the lottery.
He has several moments that you want to excuse because these are teenagers, these are people who are not control their emotions. But as I said before, the problem is the bad writing where it's not consistent. In New Moon, I think the biggest issue I said before, it's not a love triangle. There are only two people involved. She sees Edward as the man she wants to marry. It doesn't matter what happens to her soul, anything like that. Jacob was just a friend. The biggest problem I have with Eclipse is that it's still supposed to make you think that you're watching a love triangle,
Yeah, exactly.
but there is no love triangle. Bella flat out states that multiple times. So the story just doesn't work because you know she will never choose Jacob. Even him doing things, forcing a kiss onto her.
Yeah, borderline sexual assault there. Well,
Yeah, her later at one point asking him, no, I want you to kiss me now. And then telling Edward, I don't know why I did
I was
that.
gonna say, yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, it makes no sense. So it's you can't have a love triangle if there's no believability between that. I felt while I was watching it, this is like Romeo and Juliet and somebody else who we threw in that you know that Juliet's not going to choose. You want the middle film to take you somewhere, to be interesting. You know it's not going to wrap everything up, but you want the stakes are increased somehow. This film does not raise the stakes at all. That's one of the things we'll talk about later. One of my biggest causes of death. It doesn't do anything to raise the stakes, even though it keeps saying that they've been raised. You don't
Yeah,
see that at any point in time in the story.
yeah. I was getting ready to say that too. Like this kind of ties into your point here to where there's no stakes or there's pretty much nothing. Yeah. Even though we're talking down to it, even though we're talking down to it and pretty much crapping all over it, things do happen in this movie, but they feel like it's nothing. Like the big fight that we have to prepare for with the new bloods and Victoria and her army. It's nothing. It's so bland. The action's bland. No one really gets. No one. You think someone would get killed at least, but no, nothing happens.
Yes, that's my big cause of death. There is a lot of potential, or you would think, in what's going to happen in Eclipse. Victoria is creating a new vampire army. That's the word they use multiple times, a vampire army to come to take out the Cullens and finally get her revenge on Edward by killing Bella in front of him.
Oh yeah.
This threat is going to be so massive, they have to form an alliance with the werewolves to stand a chance. The
And
final
meanwhile,
battle,
and meanwhile, the army is only with like 6 people.
yes,
And they tried to gaslight us and excuse it, saying like, "Oh, these new bloods are so powerful; they'll be like a whole army themselves." No, they weren't.
They didn't. It's so much telling but not showing that it's so frustrating. I was thinking the whole time, where's the big battle? Where's the fight? Where's everything that you promised? And it started off really poorly, in my opinion. Victoria, who's been our kind of lingering antagonist since I think the first film, she
Yeah.
is played by a new actress, Bryce Dallas Howard, for some reason, who's only in the film like at the end. She's
Well,
the
you know
main
what?
antagonist for
Well,
this.
you know what? You could be making that up, and I would believe you because I honestly do not remember what she looks like off the top of my head.
Yes, they have Victoria continuing her grudge against Edward and Bella, but she's doing all of this through a guy who we see transform to a vampire in the very first scene of the film, a guy named Riley. Riley then recruits supposedly an army of new vampires in Seattle to bring to Forks to take out the Cullens and Bella. Why they make Victoria a backseat villain and had this very convoluted reason that they gave, well, oh, well, Alice would have seen it was Victoria if she was recruiting the vampires. But I was like, but I don't understand why that's a
But
big deal anyway, if
yeah,
they
it was
knew it
like
was Victoria. Yeah, so having Riley, this new guy, as the main person attracting and turning all these new vampires on behalf of Victoria makes no sense. He's
yeah,
not an important character.
they turned Victoria from being this the main trio of the first two movies into a puppet master pretty much, and we already have puppet masters with the
Yeah,
Volturi.
so I was like, it would make no sense unless you got rid of the Volturi, but the Volturi are still there. These are the vampire, Pope essentially and his crew of people. They're still there. They're watching everything happen. It just didn't make any sense to me. So I was like, why do you get a new actress to play Victoria, a high profile actress, to just do this role, which the way it's written, you could have just cast anybody to do that. It didn't really make any sense.
Yeah, I'm jumping all over the place, but I'm just gonna say this now before I forget it. Very easy script, very easy stitch up that will fix all of this. Well, some of it. It just say Victoria was employed by the Volturi. Boom, fix that right there.
Yes, and it
Because
gives
there's no reason for her to be so obsessed.
Yes, it actually gives both of those groups a reason to do something. The Volturi are supposed to be all powerful and all threatening, and they keep saying, well, Edward, you keep saying you're going to change Bella, but we haven't seen that happen yet. So we're going to kill her if you don't do it. So having her actually the one who the Volturi send to kill Bella would actually make sense. That's actually a really good script stitch up. They killed the young girl whose name is, I think, Bree, who just wanted to surrender. She didn't actually do any fighting. The Cullens want to adopt her, and the Volturi are like, no, we're not going to allow that. And the Cullens just let this girl be executed. It really made me think the Cullens were very weak to not even put up a fight, even an
Yeah,
argument. No one, including Bella, said anything.
yeah,
And
it's so strange. And Bella gives this stupid line later about, oh, she's okay with all this death or whatever. I'm just like, yeah, because you literally just let that little girl just be executed for just being there. So the Volturi look pathetic, and then the Cullens look even more pathetic with that.
yes, they literally didn't raise a hand to stop them from executing the girl. Very cowardly.
Yeah,
It made me think less of all
yeah,
of them.
and I get that they were trying to, and I get that in the movie they're like, oh, we can't win a war against the Volturi. We just need to deal with them and just let them leave so we could be left alone. But even at the very least, they could have done like a even though it's like stereotypical, you could have done like a hold me back moment, like
Yes, exactly.
something.
Something. Make them torture one of you, at least slightly.
They just watched as they executed her.
It really made them look pretty cowardly and kind of taking it back to that final fight. No one outside of Jacob, as far as I can tell, is even hurt. And even the way Jacob is hurt makes no sense. I was looking forward to what I thought was going to be a very cool scene. You have this very tentative alliance between the werewolves and the vampires. They understand this new army is going to be a threat. We got to protect Bella, so we're going to have to work together to do this. They come together to go to the baseball field or that open area in the woods to train. And I'm like, oh, cool. We're going to see some vampires and werewolves training together. And it's just the werewolves
What
in
was
their
watching?
dog form watching the vampires fight each other.
So I was just like, where's the training?
And then the werewolves leave.
There was no training.
I was like, what? There's no training.
There's
They were just supposed to say, okay, we can see what you guys do. I guess we'll absorb that and talk among ourselves, and we'll be ready at the end.
it was so bad.
I was like, wait, where's this is supposed to be a training montage. We're gonna see something. And the only important piece of information they were given is don't let them get their arms around you. They will crush you to death.
Which almost happened to Jacob. So, which means the one thing that they learned, he didn't remember.
I didn't understand why we didn't see them prepping for that. Like, show the werewolves learning how to get out of an encounter like that. Like, if somebody is trying to get you in a chokehold like that or a bear hug, how do you get out of it? How do you use teamwork? It was just like they couldn't come up with anything for them to do other than for the vampires to do their vampire martial arts really quickly against each other. And that was it. It just didn't
Yeah.
really make any sense. It was so underwhelming. The preparation scene and the final fight at the end. Oddly enough, the moment of the film that I found the most entertaining, even though it was melodramatic, is when Bella and Edward have snuck off to the mountain somewhere to hide, and it's freezing. They're in a tent.
Oh my
Jacob
god. Yeah.
comes in, is like, I need to wrap my arms around her, use my body heat, and he
And he
gives
gives the
that
10 out
line.
of 10 line. Let's face it, I am hotter than you.
I actually laughed out loud during that moment. That was what you go for when you want to see something melodramatic in a love triangle. That just took the cake. That was perfect. I absolutely love that line. Edward just has to stand there and watch Jacob, cuddle up with his girl. And he even says afterwards, Jacob says, "Oh, Bella, you warm up even faster if you took your clothes off." So
It's
even she's like, Jacob, that's too far. Just stop.
just a quick confessional. Me and my friends sometimes unpromptly text that to each other when we don't really have anything to say, but we just want to say something.
That's
It's
funny.
just it was the most like obvious and ham-fisted like squee line I've ever seen in a movie.
But that's the thing. I'm not asking for what you would call classic literature, whatever. A movie just has to be entertaining. And that was the kind of moment I wish the film had more
Yeah, I
of.
wish we had more fun bad moments like that instead of just the nothing burger that this entire movie is.
And so now that we've covered one legitimate cause of celebration and a few causes of death, let's take a quick commercial break and we'll come back with our script stitch ups. Do you like jeans? Do you like shorts? Do you only like jeans and shorts? Then head on down to Just Jorts, Forks, Washington, premier destination for jean shorts and nothing else. That's right. At Just Jorts, we specialize in one thing: acid wash distressed jorts. Do you like jorts for hiking, fighting, brooding by the river, running shirtless through the woods? We got you covered. Just jorts. No shirts, no shoes, just jorts. Do people flinch when they touch you? Does holding your hand feel more like holding a corpse? Do your dates always ask, are you okay? Your hands are freezing. Then it's time to turn up the heat. Literally. Introducing Thermoskin, the first wearable thermal layer designed specifically for vampires who want to pass as warm blooded, emotionally available people. Whether you're at high school prom for the sixth time, meeting your girlfriend's very warm blooded father, or just standing around creepily in her bedroom while she sleeps, Thermoskin will help you blend in with the living. Thermoskin. Just because your heart's cold doesn't mean your skin should be. Okay, and we're back. So let's get into our script stitch ups. So do you want to go ahead and kick us off? You gave a
Yeah.
great one earlier already.
Oh, which one, Jasper or or Victorian?
The Victoria one. I think combining Victoria and the Volturi plot lines is a great
Yeah.
script stitch up.
Maybe not hire her because I just kind of say that in the spur of the moment thing, but like make her like an agent or something to be like, okay, you need to spy on this family to make sure that either A, Belle's a vampire, and if she's not, you need to kill her. That will make more sense than what she did in this movie because that whole revenge for her dead mate plot line was dumb. And this will actually make it so the Volturi are actually somewhat more threatening and not the pathetic, just fenced-in bureaucrats they are in this movie.
The director of this film, a guy named David Slade, He directed 30 Days of Night, which is a vampire film set in Alaska about a town that's under attack from vampires that have the benefit of no sun coming up. He also directed a couple of other movies. A recent horror movie, I think, was called Dark Horizon. There's a very interesting bit of lore about this supernatural being attacking a town full of kids. I really would change the story to go based on that initial thread that you see in the opening minutes. There is someone creating an army of new vampires in Seattle, yet somehow this is nothing that we really focus on, except for the fact that, like you said, about six vampires show up to fight the Cullens. Why don't we make this a story of Edward and his Cullen family deciding to do something about the people being killed in Seattle?
Yeah,
I would
just
love to see a town under siege and the vampires coming to the rescue, really showing a different side of them, other than the fact they're like, oh, well, they just allow these people to be slaughtered. They let this army be built. They don't do anything. They let the innocent vampires die. And so I would just say the biggest thing you would have to change is take away this focus on only Bella. There are literally dozens of other people who were killed in this film, seemingly nobody cared about. Put something, since Bella only cares about Edward, I get that. But if you wanted to follow your thread where you said, let's just fix Bella, put something in Seattle that Bella cares about so that these random vampire attacks that are decimating the city of Seattle, she wants to convince Edward to do something. Bella is single-mindedly fixated on becoming a vampire, so that she doesn't seemingly care about anything else. Give her some reason to try to convince Edward and his Cullen family to do something to protect this town. I think that that's what I felt that this franchise at this point in time was missing. This is where you say, okay, Edward in the second film wanted to expose himself to get himself killed. Make it so that this is the moment where the real world learns about these vampires, and these vampires have protected them. That
yeah,
these vampires protect them from the bad vampires. Like this film just needed something more
it's
than
so
this.
it's so weird, isn't it? That like Edward almost exposed the vampires to the humans in the last movie. They both Bella and Edward almost died, and there's like no like after effects from that. There's like no nothing.
Yeah.
And the Volturi is like, oh, you have to turn her, we'll kill her, is nothing because we see it's nothing in this movie. So they got away remarkably with nothing after that, which is so weird, isn't it?
Yes, it's so benign that it's non-threatening. And that's where, for the type of story this is, and maybe this is me wishing it were a different genre than it really is. I get it. It's a romance angle. It's kind of wish fulfillment story. It just has so much seemingly very interesting stuff buried under this mundane, really pathetic love story, in my opinion. I think that's the biggest thing I have. So if I had to make major changes, it would be stuff like that. Now,
Yeah,
minor
if
script stitch ups, we kind of already talked about.
yeah, I was gonna say if we had free reign for this whole like series, we would just make Sinners probably.
Exactly. Obviously, I would make that Civil War era vampire story, which apparently is the Abe Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Dude, like I cannot wait till we get to the next two movies because you will hate me for making you watch them.
So I think that the overall story was problematic. We've mentioned some of those minor script stitches we would do, make the training montage better, actually kill somebody during the final battle. I
Yeah,
don't understand how everybody walked out alive.
there's so many other no-name characters that could have bid it in our main group and we wouldn't care.
The biggest thing I would also say about that final battle in the film, we separate Edward and Bella from the location of the final battle, which is the cleared forest area where they have the vampire baseball. I think that creates two separate stories that don't need to be separate, and it would be much better if they were actually together. You see Jacob get crushed by a vampire who was there for no reason, makes no sense, and is seemingly meaningless in so many ways. Have him get crushed or almost die to save Bella. Like it just really robs it of any meaning that there was really no reason for it to
Yeah,
happen.
they could have very easily did that. Because the werewolf that saved Bella was that one whose name I can't remember.
Yeah, like
Seth, I think.
I get that whole plot point, and they were trying to flesh out those werewolves a little bit, but it didn't really mean anything. So it was like, actually include our major characters in that final moment. Make him make a sacrifice. for Bella and have her not to say that she had to choose to be with him, but again, give it some meaning. It was
Yeah,
just like, oh, here's a random werewolf, sorry, here's a random vampire that nobody noticed, and they gotta attack in, and we gotta take it down. Oh no, Jacob got hurt. It's just really random. This is something I want to comment on. I don't think it's a script stitch up since we're expanding lots of things. I just want to talk about it here. I feel that Robert Pattinson looks terrible in the vampire makeup they put
oh
him
yeah.
in.
We talked a little before we started recording, and this is the thing he wouldn't stop talking
Yeah,
about.
he just looks so pasty and doughy. I just feel
Yeah,
that every other guy in the film, you see what look they're going for, that sinister, even though they're pale look, he just looks terrible. He looks sickly. And for some reason, the director loves to just zoom in really close to his face. I just felt that he looked bad in this film.
yeah. He looks like he's constantly just like clenching his jaw to make it like more like defined, or whatever.
Yes,
But
that was the thing I thought. Like, he just looks like he has a really fat face. And I'm sure that's not true, but every other guy seems to have the classic chiseled jaw, that great jawline, and he doesn't have. And the makeup choice that they use in this film, it does him no favors.
yeah, for all you other internet brained losers like me, it just Edward looks like he's just been mewing like constantly, just trying to force himself to have a better jaw.
He just
Like
looks terrible.
I'm almost certain that Stephanie Meyer just made him do that because she thought it looked hot.
He just looks bad, in my opinion, in every single shot in this film, which is really unfortunate. I don't know how they could have done things differently with the makeup. Maybe
Yeah,
some fake contouring. I don't use makeup, but I hear you can do some wonderful things with makeup. Can you create his just features so that they look sharper and just not so pasty and doughy?
yeah,
He just looked bad in this film. Another thing, since we're not really doing script stitch ups, I think this is
yeah.
another type of complaint.
We're going back to our aliens and zombies days with this
Yeah.
one.
Every time the Cullens stand together outside, why did it look like they were posing for an album cover?
Yeah, it looks like they were getting ready for like a mixtape.
Yeah. They look like some Christian rock group every time they stand together outside. I
Like my
really
God,
laughed.
like I get they're dead and all, but just like they were human, so why don't they stand normal?
They wonder why people keep thinking something is weird about it. Like, why do you guys pose like that anytime you're standing together?
Yeah. Well, number one, they all look like they're covered in baby powder for some reason, and number two, they stand like they're posing for like a Backstreet Boys concert.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you stand, but you look this way. You lower your head. So, in summary, I will stick with my 1.5 or 1 star. I can't remember which one I gave it.
You gave it a
I,
one.
yeah, so I will stick with my 1 star rating of the film. I think that the story is mostly filler. There is nothing of consequence that actually happens in this film. I feel if you watch New Moon and then wanted to skip to the last two films, you wouldn't miss anything by completely avoiding this film. It doesn't even have the melodrama that was so over the top and fun in a bad way about the last two films.
Yeah,
There's not a lot there.
yeah. I'm gonna stick with my point 0.5 5 stars here. It's just I'm completely agree with you. There's just like most of this movie is just a nothing burger. There's nothing really interesting that happens. There's only like a handful of fun bad moments that'll bring you back into the movie. There's the big character assassination to Jacob, and there's the pretty much pretty much the entirety of this movie is just gaslighting you to think that toxic relationships are hot. So yeah, point 0.5 out of 5.
So that's it for this episode of Movie Postmortem. Don't forget to like and subscribe and give us 5 stars because even bad podcasts deserve a good review. Remember, whether it's good, bad, or just a guilty pleasure, every movie deserves a postmortem. Thanks for listening.
And as always, let's face it, I am hotter than you. We'll see you next time for hopefully a better movie.